In one form or another, the unusual way in which marsupials are born has been the subject of strange myths and legends for hundreds of years. The early navigators made many observations on kangaroos and wallabies as they explored the coast of the great Southland. Perhaps one of the earliest was the Dutch merchant Francisco Pelsart, who ran aground on the Abrolhos Islands off the coast of Western Australia in 1628. Despite the fact that his ship was wrecked and some of the crew had mutinied, Pelsart was sufficiently observant to record some interesting notes on the tama wallabies which live on these remote islands.
Their manner of generation is exceedingly strange and highly worth observing. Below the belly, the female carries a pouch inside which are the teats, and we have found that the young ones grow up in this pouch. We have seen young in the pouch which were only the size of a bean, so that it seems certain that they grow there, out of the teats from which they draw their food. The young occupy the pouch until they are grown up and able to walk, and thereafter keep creeping into the pouch when they are hunted.
By suggesting that marsupial young grew from the teat, Pelsart and others created a myth which persists to the present day. The facts of birth in kangaroos and other marsupials were not finally known until scientific studies were made of all aspects of their reproduction. Most of these investigations have been carried out with red kangaroos in captivity, and this film has been compiled during these observations. In the wild, red kangaroos live and breed throughout most of inland Australia, where the annual rainfall is less than 20 inches. The red kangaroo is well adapted to these semi-arid conditions, and unlike most other marsupials, it breeds all through the year. This seems to be a very efficient form of adaptation to the environment, for if they had a regular breeding season, there could be frequent failures of whole generations of young because they were born at times unfavorable for their survival. The red kangaroo seems to avoid these catastrophes by having young enter the population at all times of the year. Those that leave the pouch at a time when they can find sufficient food and water survive. Those that do not perish. In the red kangaroo, only the males, like the one in the background, have the characteristic rusty red fur. The females in the foreground are usually blue-grey in color, often referred to as blue flyers or blue does. In some areas, variations of color can occur in either sex. As in many other mammals, female red kangaroos have a cyclic reproductive pattern. The unmated female has a period of estrus, or sexual receptivity, every 35 days. The male is continuously fertile and will mate with the female whenever she is in estrus. The male becomes aware of the approach of sexual receptivity and begins to follow the female. Such behavior may start 2 or more days before mating, and at times the chase may be energetic. He smells the pouch and the external genital opening, and quite often grasps the tail of the female. Once full sexual receptivity is attained, the female stands for the male and copulation occurs. This may last for up to 20 minutes. If mating is not observed, it may be diagnosed from the vaginal smear, a collection of cells from the vaginal tract of the female. The sample is then placed on a slide, and under the microscope, sperms can be seen in the vaginal smears of kangaroos which have recently mated. The reproductive organs of the female red kangaroo lie in the body cavity just behind the pouch and consist of 2 ovaries, 2 fallopian tubes, and 2 uteri. The 2 uteri open separately into the anterior vaginal sinus. The walls of this canal are thin and capable of great extension after mating as they become filled with seminal fluid. The two lateral vaginae are much narrower canals with thick muscular walls. The median vagina forms a direct connection between the anterior vaginal sinus and the urogenital sinus. It is down this median vagina that the young kangaroo passes at birth. If we section this drawing, we will be able to follow more easily the various stages of fertilization and pregnancy. After mating, the sperms pass up the two lateral vaginae, filling out the anterior vaginal sinus and moving up into the two uteri. The mature follicle, which has developed in one ovary, bursts just after estrus and a single egg is shed. This egg is fertilized in the fallopian tube and moves down into the uterus. The follicle collapses and is replaced by a corpus luteum, an endocrine organ which produces the hormone of pregnancy, progesterone. Now the embryo starts the development, which will last for about 33 days. The embryo is surrounded by the yolk sac and a number of membranes. Throughout this period, there is no way of telling whether a female kangaroo is pregnant or not. This can only be diagnosed by opening up the animal and finding a developing embryo in one of the two uteri. However, the pregnant female is immediately distinguished from the non-pregnant one during the several hours just before birth. At this time, she begins an intensive period of pouch cleaning, putting her muzzle right into the pouch, licking the lining. She also licks around the opening of the pouch, but rarely the fur between the pouch and the urogenital opening. The female red kangaroo about to give birth takes up a normal grooming position. The back is usually supported and the tail passed forwards between the hind legs. Now the young has completed development and starts to leave the uterus. It goes down the median vagina, a short cut between the uterus and the urogenital sinus.